George, would you give us a brief biographical sketch of your life as far as where you started
Well,
out?
I was born in 1934 in Baltimore, Maryland. Went through elementary and high school in Baltimore. Decided early on that I was going to be an engineer, and the high school I went to was the Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, which was an all-male, technically oriented high school. And when I was a junior in high school, I went to a Navy-Georgia Tech football game in Baltimore, Maryland, and I heard them sing "I'm a Ramblin' Wreck" from Georgia Tech, and I drank my whiskey clear, and I made a decision right then and there that I was going to Georgia Tech. And so after graduating from high school in 1952, I went to Atlanta, Georgia, and got my education and got an engineering degree from Georgia Tech. What else you need to know?
Well, one thing I'd like to know is what course you did go into HVAC&R?
Well, when I graduated from Georgia Tech, well, let's say even going back before that, as a senior at Georgia Tech, I got a part-time job with a very well-known consulting engineering firm in Atlanta called Newcomb & Boyd. And in those days, they may have been maybe 15, 20 people. Today, there may be 150 people, so they have really prospered. And I met a gentleman named Pat Gupton, who was also a graduate of Georgia Tech. And one day, while I was back there on my drawing board, I was a part-time draftsman, he brought a gentleman back to meet me who was named Bill McKinney, and Bill McKinney happened to be the regional manager for the American Blower Company there in Atlanta. And so he asked that I come out and interview him, and as a result of that, I took a job, and both Pat Gupton and Bill McKinney told me that I needed to join ASHRAE. So as a student at Georgia Tech, I joined ASHRAE in 1958 before I graduated. Now, Bill McKinney is still alive today, and I think he's like 95 years old, and serves on the ASHRAE A&A committee and religiously goes to every meeting. And this guy is really quite an institution in the society today.
Well, when you joined that organization, what was your actual first position?
And with American Blower, well, they hired me as a sales engineer and sent me to Birmingham, Alabama. And as a Baltimore boy who married a girl from Norfolk, Virginia, I guess Birmingham, Alabama was the last place I ever expected to land. But we have lived in Birmingham, Alabama since 1959, so I've been there 42 years. We went there from Atlanta with a brand new baby daughter, and now she's grown and has two daughters, our granddaughters, and then we had two sons following that, and one of them now lives in Atlanta. The older one lives in Birmingham. We have 5 grandchildren now, and life is good in Birmingham, Alabama.
Well, that's good. Well, you know, when you're a young engineer on your first job and everything, there's always some things that really stick out in your mind as far as your first experience or whatever. Do you have any interesting things to tell us about that?
Well, I remember calling on a major mechanical contractor, and this was one of the very early projects that I worked on, and I estimated the cost of the equipment, and I got an order, and then found out I made a lulu of a mistake and sold it too cheap, and so that broke me in real quick at how to be careful. But what I remember then is I learned how to be a fan engineer, and trying to draw fan curves by plotting points individually on graph paper using a slide rule, and how things have changed today where you press a button and you get a fan curve out now, you know.
Yeah, well, as a fan engineer, you know, back in those days, what were the kind of challenges that fan engineering faced?
Oh, gee whiz, Bern. I think that proper fan application was a major issue, trying to select the right fan for the right duty, and there were a lot of different applications that required, you know, some expertise to select the fan that was going to do the best job.
You said you joined ASHRAE as a student member
I did.
early on.
Right.
How soon did you get really active in ASHRAE?
Well, as soon as I went through a training program with the American Blower Company in Detroit, Michigan, and went back to Atlanta for a short period of time before I moved to Atlanta, and that was primarily because we were expecting our first child, and they let us stay in Atlanta until she was born. When I went to Birmingham, one of the first things I did, and my boss in Birmingham took me to the ASHRAE meeting. So I have been active in ASHRAE since the very, very beginning of my career, and I've never strayed from the HVAC industry. I've always been involved in the HVAC industry since I started.
As far as your ASHRAE career, what types of things did you do within the organization as time went on?
Well, of course, I started off in the Birmingham chapter, and and I held chapter committee responsibilities. I got involved in the leadership of the Birmingham chapter in the early 70s. Was president of the Birmingham chapter in 1974, 75, and immediately thereafter was selected as the regional vice chairman for education for Region 7, which was the region that Birmingham is in. And from that point on, I've always had a job. I don't think that in the 43 years since I joined ASHRAE, I've had a job in ASHRAE every year. There was never a year that I missed doing something, either at the chapter, the regional, or the society level.
And of course, the ultimate job in ASHRAE was to become the president.
Absolutely.
Which you did.
Absolutely.
Why don't you talk a little bit about your presidential theme for that year?
Well, of course, I'd had an opportunity to see some things that I felt needed to be done, and one of them was the fact that we had been messing around with the Training Institute or the Learning Institute. So learning became a principal focus. I felt like it needed to finally be brought into focus and something done definitively that was going to define the future of ASHRAE's learning endeavors. And so I was committed to getting the Learning Institute off the ground the year I was president. The other was other things that I call bridges to the future were learning, unity, and visibility. I felt like we needed to have more unity among all of the technical societies, and particularly internally in ASHRAE, and I tried to focus on that. And visibility, it seemed to me that ASHRAE did a lot for the public and was never given any public recognition, and you and I were fortunate enough to participate in the exhibition at the Building Museum, and how that brought to light the things that we do for society and the important things in refrigeration and air conditioning. And it's particularly rewarding in the South. I've read many times that when I went to Birmingham, Alabama, it was a very warm, muggy climate, and this was in the late 50s, and air conditioning was just getting cranked up down there. But there had been in the 40s and even before that an exodus of people from the South because it was just uncomfortable to live. And in recent years, the air conditioning has made it possible for people to live comfortably in the South. So a lot of folks are coming back because it's a good place to live and it's very comfortable.
Well, that brings up an interesting idea, and that's that what you just talked about was really the fact that ASHRAE and its efforts and its people have changed society in a certain way.
Right.
And of course, society in its turn changes ASHRAE.
Mm-hmm.
And what when you were president, what kind of things did you see happening along those lines as far as that give and take? How did society impact ASHRAE? The big things that were going on at the time.
I'm not sure I know how to answer that, Bern. I'm thinking. I know he's going to cut this, so he'll cut this crap out. But
I just walked in front of the lens.
Oh, you did.
You count on that being edited.
how has society impacted ASHRAE?
And impacted what we
In,
do.
in a technological way, or just in a personal way, in a people way?
In any kind of a way, especially from the standpoint of what direction it causes us to go in, maybe.
Well, we are certainly guided by the necessity for energy conservation, and I guess that was one of the very early involvements in committee activities beyond the education committee, which I served on first. But I had decided in the early 70s, as a result of the Arab oil embargo, to go into the consulting engineering business. I had been I've been involved with a manufacturer and became a manufacturer's rep, selling air conditioning equipment. Then I went to work for a mechanical contractor, and that didn't work out too well. And that's when I decided to go into the consulting engineering business, which is still what you might call my endeavor. And energy conservation was the principal the incentive that I had at that time. It occurred to me that a professional engineer who was knowledgeable in our technologies could provide a very viable service to the people who were owning and operating buildings. And that was my concept of starting a firm called Energy Management Consultants. And this was probably in 1973, 74. And I struggled with that mightily for about 5 years. But then all of a sudden, things started catching on. And as a result, I built a pretty sizable consulting engineering business that did nothing but energy conservation, energy studies, retrofit designs, and until the late 80s, when there was a significant emphasis or de-emphasis on energy conservation, which all of us know about, kind of put me in a bind because the business had declined significantly. And I got back into providing, traditional design services for architectural type clients. And this just wasn't my cup of tea. I was not very happy doing that. And but that kind of got me in. I'd say that ASHRAE had more impact on my career paths and the decisions that I made to in doing my business than anything else that I've ever been involved in. I bet you it was the same way with you, huh?
Yeah, and when you talk about the impact of ASHRAE on things, would you say then that ASHRAE kind of leads society in a certain direction? Personally, I may be biased, but I don't think that anything that we enjoy in our tremendous quality of life would be possible without the works that ASHRAE and its members have done to make refrigeration possible and to make air conditioning and heating, as available to everybody. I mean, it's just a major thing in our lives. You talked about your involvement in education too.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously are very interested in that area. What kind of comments would you make as far as the status of engineering education?
Well, I wish that our engineering education had more involvement in the HVAC in our industry. I think this is a frustration that we all have as we go out and we talk to educators, and because HVAC&R does not seem to be a high priority in engineering schools. And so, I think we're all trying to do something about that. And but engineering is a great profession, and we just need to interest young men and to come into the HVAC&R industry.
As somebody who's now an employer of young engineers and has dealt with many other employers, do you feel it's important for a young engineer to get hands-on experience? Does that make him?
Well, I don't think that's absolutely. I went through Georgia Tech on what they called the co-op program, and although that didn't specifically impact my choice of going into the HVAC in our industry, which I've already told you about. I did have a chance to work in industry, and that was a very, very great opportunity to see what was going on, and that helped me tremendously in making my career decisions in the future.
What do you think that ASHRAE itself can do to encourage those kinds of trends?
I think we're doing it with the ASHRAE Learning Institute, which I think is now coming into being with courses that are easily accessible to people who are interested in learning our technology and becoming proficient in applying the technology. And this is happening now. I see this improving as time goes on, and I think it'll continue to do so.
Let's get back a little bit more personal. You mentioned some people who had some influence on you. Who would you say were some of the very influential people in your life in terms of engineering and general inspiration?
Well, I had an uncle who was an engineer when I was a little boy, and I always admired him, and he always talked to me about being an engineer, but also had a knack for mechanical things and taking things apart, which I think many of us do when we're young, and kind of gives us some guidance as to what we're going to do in the future. But I guess that I decided when I went to this technical high school that I was going to be an engineer, so it was pretty well predetermined at that point in time. Where I went from there, I think, was impacted by Pat Gupton, by Bill McKinney, my business partner, David Butler, and people like this have all been a part of just a great career and a wonderful opportunity to deal with people who were really great engineers and impacted me tremendously. ASHRAE has been a major part of my life, without question.
What about the question of ethics in engineering? How important do you think that is?
Oh, good gracious. I mean, as a professional engineer, I think it's absolutely critical, not only to engineering, but to the conduct of any business. And it's been something that I have worked very hard to be sure that when you do it in an ethical, straightforward, honest manner, and don't leave any skeletons in your closet or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. When you got into the presidency of ASHRAE, you obviously, each person does their presidency in a different type of style. What would you say was your style as far as how you conducted yourself?
Well, I think we talked earlier about the fact that I was committed to enjoying that year. And so was my wife, Donna Lee. And I think that we had a wonderful time dealing with people all over the world who were and are, involved in our industry. And I considered myself an ambassador of ASHRAE, and I tried my very best to leave the best possible impression wherever I went, that we were a world-class organization, and which we are, and that was very important to me. And I have a lot of great memories of people that I had contact with in the year of travel.
For someone who is aspiring to be the president of ASHRAE, or who is on their way towards that position, what kind of advice would you give them?
Good gracious. Do your job, and do it with great commitment, and be kind and kind to people, and mentor people, bring them along, and make sure that they know the best way to do it is going to be a good people person. I think this is really important, and I think that ASHRAE has this rule that the job seeks the man. And if you aspire to be president of the society, and you do everything you can to do your job and treat people well, then you're going to have the best opportunity to serve the society in that capacity.
And that really leads into my next question, which is a lot of younger engineers will say, "Why should I join ASHRAE? What good does it do me to join ASHRAE?" What would you say to them?
Well, beyond the ability to have access to the very best technology that would guide you in your career, your engineering career, the friends that you make and that you enjoy are really lasting friendships that, I go way back and say that I'm just so glad that I had this opportunity to walk this path and meet these people and still have many of them as my friends. And that's the most important thing in life, in my opinion. I mean, you got to get from here to there, but people are very, very important in doing that.
And as far as a young person who isn't necessarily in this industry yet, what would you say to someone, as to why they should get into this industry?
Well, it is a very, very important industry, and the benefits that we provide to mankind are immense. And I think that the contribution that a young person could make could be significant in this area. And I can't think of a better area to get involved in something that would impact people's lives any more than HVAC&R.
Well, George, we've still got a little more tape left. Is there anything else that you would like to expound upon as far as...
Where do I need to head?
Yeah, things that you would like to say for posterity.
For posterity. Well, I received an award yesterday that I thought was just, I never expected it. It was just absolutely incredible to be awarded the Exceptional Service Award. I think I got the Distinguished Service Award some 10 or 15 years ago. But there's no way I could ever do enough for ASHRAE. And what ASHRAE's done for me has just been immense in my life. I can't even describe the pleasure that I've had and the good that I've gotten out of being a part of this organization. So what I've gotten is far, far more. You hear this a lot, but it was far, far more than I've ever given. And because what I've given has been just a great pleasure. So what else can I say, Vern? I don't know. I still got a lot of years to hang around. We were sitting at lunch today, and all the presidents were at the luncheon, the board luncheon, and we started comparing ages, and here was Rod Kirkwood and Clint Phillips and Fred Kolos. And Fred was the youngest of this group, and he was 79. And Clint Phillips is 86, and he's still coming to these meetings. This is fantastic. And I'm sitting there saying, I hope that in 20 years, I'll be 86, that I can be sitting at that luncheon again, because it's just incredible. I've never seen anything to equal the number of presidents that they come to this meeting until they're just not able. I mean, I think that traditionally we have 17 to 18 past presidents that come to this meeting every year. Now, if that doesn't say something, I don't know what does. It's absolutely incredible. And these people have all been a part of my life. And I just hope that I can, give back the same little bit to the people who are coming along now. It's been an incredible opportunity. What else can we say, Vern?
Well,
okay.
I'm going to ask you to hang on to that thought, because I have to change the tape.
Oh.
That's where all that noise was.
But I also wanted you to introduce George at the very beginning. kind of started right into the first.
Oh, okay.
To the first.
I hope there's a little bit of stuff in there that's worth.
Absolutely, and the point you made about all the presidents is one of the good ones.
Yeah, that was good.
Well, it's true, isn't it, Mort?
I think so. We've got one on the historical committee now.
Yeah.
What that says,
And we had one last year.
Yeah.
You know, Bill Chapman was
Oh, yeah.
this year, and
Yeah.
I see Fred at every meeting.
Yeah.
I go to.
Fred just, I mean, he's a workhorse. I mean, he's involved in standards and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Okay, do you want to do the intro first, or do you want to continue?
Well, I guess we'll continue that thought line,
Right,
and then
okay.
we'll do the intro.
All right, and you can go anytime.
Okay.
Okay.
When
Excuse me.
When you were talking about the fact that so many past presidents continue to show up at the meeting because they want to, does that say anything about the fact that ASHRAE is a voluntary society?
I think what it says is that people fall in love with ASHRAE. I mean, I think that's the honest goodness truth, that everybody is, they become a part of the family. And I think that my feeling is exemplary of this, that these are people that not only me, but my wife she has to come just as I do to see these people. And we look forward to these meetings and the friendships and the relationships that we've made with, a great deal of enthusiasm. Now, to be doing the work of the society, which benefits the industry, while this type of environment exists, is truly a remarkable pleasure and remarkable thing. So, it's just a win-win situation. I don't know anybody in the society who doesn't enjoy what they do for ASHRAE, particularly you. And I think that one of the things that I tell a story about a lot is when the president-elect is asked to sit down and make all of the committee appointments for his presidential year, and you gather in Atlanta with Gloria and the incoming president-elect, and you have this huge list of people who have been either recommended or write letters wanting a job in the society, and it never fails that you don't have enough jobs. And this is a testimony to the commitment of these people. And then after all of this appointing process is done, and you run into people in the halls, they either come up to you and shake your hand and thank you for the job, or they say, "Damn, George, you didn't give me a job." And so, it was really, I thought that was just remarkable, because I don't know that I've ever been in an organization where people stand in line to get a job and work in a volunteer organization such as this.
And work for no pay.
And work for no pay, and work hard for no pay.
Well, good. Well, thanks so much for the time, George.
Okay.
We really appreciate it.
Okay.
And,
It was my great pleasure, Bern.
okay.